It's all over the news. This commencement speech of Harrison Butker, who gave a commencement speech at Benedictine College in Kansas City. And of course, he's a Kansas City Chiefs field goal kicker. So I got to do this commentary as a Dallas Cowboy fan, okay? Look, listen, I listened to the entire 20-minute speech that he gave. And there are so many things that are positive, so many things are good. Yet the liberal media is very angry at his speech, and they're coming against him. The woke crowd. And you all know the woke crowd is that crowd that is condemning certain speech that doesn't affirm their liberal ideas. Well, the woke crowd, the liberal media, they're getting upset at certain parts of the speech, parts that I actually liked and I agreed with. Yet they're ignoring the parts that I would have to say I disagree with. Here's one of the parts of the speech that they really didn't like. It had to do with abortion and President Joe Biden. Let's take a look at it.
Of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally.
Look, he spoke the truth. Joe Biden calls himself a Catholic, yet he is pro-choice. And we have to, as Christians, agree that the life of innocent children must be protected at all costs. And so I say he's right in calling out our president for his hypocrisy. But I'm going to call Harrison out for a bit of his hypocrisy in just a moment. But here's another part of the speech that the liberal media hated. It had to do with the women's role. Let's listen to what he had to say.
I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Women can be anything that God has called them to be, but he points out rightly that the most important calling for a woman, if she gets married, is to be a mother. And let us not neglect that important and high calling. Another part of the speech that the liberal media hated had to do with men. Because today, society wants to emasculate us men, and he's affirming the important role of the father. Listen to what he had to say.
Gentlemen here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture. And when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in.
So I applaud Harrison Butker for pointing out these things that the woke crowd doesn't want us to be preaching about and trying to silence the voices of Christians. But there is some hypocrisy even in Harrison. He affirms so powerfully in his view that the Catholic Church is the one and only true church, which means he has to affirm the Pope, yet the very criticism he offers against the Catholic Church that the bishops are caving into the world and they won't preach the true doctrines of Christ also goes for Pope Francis, because his own leader is part of the woke crowd, isn't he? I mean, he now says that priests can bless same-sex unions, and yet it's clear that Harrison Butker would be opposed to that. So even while affirming the Catholic Church as being the one and only true church, his own leader is doing the very opposite of what he thinks a true bishop should be. There's another thing. He says that when the bishops come together and write encyclicals and write letters, he says they're ignored. And he's right. Here's what he had to say about Catholics ignoring some of the letters that has come out of the Vatican.
Now, when a bishop of a diocese or the bishops' conference as a whole puts out an important document on this matter or that, nobody even takes a moment to read it, let alone follow it. No.
But here's the very hypocrisy of Harrison Butker. He tells us to listen, tells the Catholics you should be listening to those letters, but is he listening to Vatican II? No, he rejects it, for he affirms being a believer in the Latin Mass. And he says it's a necessity to be a good Christian, to follow the Latin Mass. Not just a preference, but a necessity. He's deeply wrong in this. Listen to what he had to say about his affirmation of the Latin Mass.
only has it been my vocation that has helped me and those closest to me, but not surprising to many of you, should be my outspoken embrace of the traditional Latin Mass. I've been very vocal in my love and devotion to the TLM and its necessity for our lives.
Butker's view that the Latin Mass is a necessity is completely wrong. In fact, it's not even productive, and I believe the Latin Mass throughout the centuries led to the downfall of Catholics where they did not understand the teachings of Scripture. The Apostle Paul even condemns any teachings and preaching that the people don't understand. He writes in 1 Corinthians 14:18, he says, I thank God I speak in tongues more than all of you, but in the church I would rather speak 5 intelligible words to instruct others than the 10,000 words in another tongue. And so that applies to the Latin Mass. If people don't understand Latin, what's the point of doing it? Now, here's my biggest criticism, and it's not anything to do with what the liberal woke media is upset about. I'm more disappointed in his sectarian viewpoint, where he looks at the Catholic Church as the one and only true church, and that has brought division. The truth of the matter is, some of the most Orthodox Christians are evangelical, Pentecostal, speaking in tongues Christians. In other words, we're upholding the very virtues that he's trying to tell the people to uphold, but it's not found just in the Catholic Church, it's also found in evangelical Christian churches. And he would do better not being so sectarian and being more broad-minded and understanding there are a lot of good Christians that are not Roman Catholic. To me, that is the biggest criticism that I would level against the speech. The other parts about morality and abortion and women and men, I give a thumbs up to that part of the speech.